So we're going to be painting a daisy landscape, and what we want to do is have as much time for the painting as possible because we have to let things dry, we have to use the hairdryer, we've got to go slow. So if we get our drawing done in advance, then it gives us that much more time to paint. So with that in mind, our daisy landscapes are going to look a little bit like this. Your daisy landscape painting absolutely does not have to match mine. This is all going to be experimental. All of the techniques that we use, they will vary from person to person and from painting to painting. So please don't worry about whether yours matches mine or not. It really doesn't matter. It's all about having a go, creating a landscape, and watercolour is organic, so it's going to do what it's going to do. And also using the hairdryer will change the outcome when it's dry more so than if you're going to leave it to dry naturally. So these are all just techniques that we'll be learning. We'll go through it step by step and we'll hopefully have some fun. So what we want to do first of all is draw out our daisies in advance of the class. What I'd like you to do is practice on a regular sheet of paper first, and then when you're confident about the drawing, then do the same drawing onto your watercolour paper, but just keep it really, really light so you can just about see the lines. Don't do it too heavy, otherwise you'll end up rubbing out. But for this practice sheet of paper, it doesn't matter, go as dark as you like, just to get a feel for the drawing. It won't take long, it'll take about 5-10 minutes. So let's get cracking. Our pencil drawing is going to look a little bit like this, but even simpler. So let's make a start. So for our 3 main daisies, we're going to start with very, very basic shapes. So on your practice sheet of paper, with any old pencil, going as hard as you feel comfortable with, you're going to draw 3 daisy centres. And we're going to do them angular. So one's going to be going like this, one's going to be going like this, and then one's going to be facing us. So this is our practice sheet. Just do a shape like this for the middle of the first daisy. And then a shape a little bit like this for the second daisy. And then a shape a little round one like this for the third daisy. And then we're going to have some little daisies dotted here, there and everywhere. They're going to they're not going to be as defined as these ones, but we're just going to kind of determine where those little daisies will be. So we'll just do a few smaller shapes, a little bit like this, maybe here, just random, different sizes, different positions, just all over. Don't worry about it too much. They're just indicators for now. And then when you've done that, we're going to just do some petals. Now the beauty of the petals is actually simpler than it looks. I know it looks quite complicated, but it's not. What we do is we'll simplify it by, we've got our centre shape already, and then we're going to do an outer shape, but we put it a little bit off centre. And so that way our petals will be angled when we start drawing them in. So for this one, all we're going to do, we'll do this lightly. So what we'll do very lightly is do a shape a little bit like this, a little bit off centre. And again here, a little bit even more off centre. So you see much more on this side of the flower than you do on this side. And then this one will be facing us, so it'll be more centralised like this. Doesn't matter what size, just keep it nice and light, because these lines you will be rubbing out. And then when you've got those 3 shapes, we're going to go back to our first daisy and we're going to start doing the petals. Now the petal shapes, so the daisy shapes are pretty simple. They kind of look like this. Go down, out and in, out and in, out and in, out and in. And we're following that shape that we've drawn. And your petals can vary. You can go nuts with your petals if you want to. You can completely copy me. You can do whatever you like with the petals. You can just keep adding them. So it's going to look something like this. I'm going to go around. They don't have to be even. You can have gaps like this, but you're following that shape. all the way around. Something like that. And then when you have those shapes, you can then fill in a few more petals. So you could have a few petals that are slightly smaller but going behind. You could have a petal that's going behind but slightly bigger. Just fill that daisy out. Layer those petals up a little bit, something like that. You might need to pause this video if I'm moving too fast for you, but that's okay. You can pause it if you need to. And then when you've got those petals down, then what you can do is just go and rub out that circular shape around it. You don't need it anymore. In fact, I'm going to get a thinner eraser. Okay, let's rub out these lines that we don't need. You can rub out as hard as you like because this is just the practice sheet. But when you've rubbed out these lines, you should be able to see how nice your daisy shape looks. Rub those out. When you do this on your watercolour paper, you'll want to go much lighter so that you don't have to go so heavy on the erasing. But there's your daisy shape. And if there are any petals that you don't like, tweak them. This is your painting. But now I'm going to do exactly the same with number 2. Now with number 2, we're going to make more of a bend on these petals so that, if I show you on this one, they're going to be a little bit more curvy. And we'll have a little bit more space in between the petals, just to add interest. So in fact, what I'm going to do is just going to rub this back a little bit. I don't need it to be quite so heavy there, so I'm just going to erase back a little bit. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to do these petals, but they're going to kind of go round. I'm going to have a little bit more space in between each petal. And then as they go behind, we might start to get a little bit hidden. We might have one that's facing upwards. I have one like that. So that daisy has definitely got a little bit more light coming through it. Less petals on that one. I'm just going to add a couple like that. Maybe there, like that. The more unnatural and the more uneven they are, the more organic and the better they'll look. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. More individual they will look. That's what we want. Wild daisies in a field. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to be there. That's it. That's daisy number 2. And now we'll go for daisy number 3. I'm just going to take that back a bit. I don't need it quite so heavy at this point. Let's go for it. They can be uneven, they can be wobbly. You can have thin petals like this, fat petals like that. If you actually Google daisies, you'll see how they differ. There's just so many different kinds. So it really doesn't matter. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. And rub out those in-betweenies. Remember, you're just practicing. Doesn't matter if you leave some of these lines on. It's just to get a feel for it. That's it. That's my 3rd daisy. Beautiful. And now with these little ones, you don't need to be too precious about it. You can just go for it. Just enjoy it. See what happens. Freewheel it. have them, if you can, have them all going in different directions. Just helps to add interest. Oh, that's a little bit weird, that one. Never mind. You go really simple like that. That's it. So you've got a clutch of daisies on your page, and that is pretty much all we need to do at this stage. What we can do is our landscape, our grass, our field is kind of going to go in this direction. Let me show you on this one. Our field, it's kind of going to go in a kind of arc. So if you want to, you can very, very gently, you can decide on your shape actually. You can either have like a bendy arc like this, or on this one, my landscape's actually kind of going up. So it's going up a hill. So it's completely up to you when we get to painting how your landscape, how your sky actually meets your ground. But for this one, so I'm just going to do this very, very lightly, like this. That's it. That's all we need to do. We don't need to worry about the stems for now. We can do all of those just when we get to paint. And that is it. So once you've done that and you feel comfortable with your composition on your page, then what I'd like you to do is get your watercolour paper, and hopefully you've checked out the other video where I talk about stretching, whether or not you want to stretch your paper. But I want you to get your watercolour paper and then just do this drawing exactly the same onto your watercolour paper. Just keep it really, really light as you can. And if you have watercolour pencils, then for sure use a green or blue or yellow watercolour pencil. But otherwise just use a regular pencil, but just keep it light. And that's it. I hope you enjoy your daisy drawing, and I will see you in class.